also be a helpline or a hotline that you can contact by email, but we'll talk about that more at the end of the presentation. Before each training session, there is some homework to do. So it's in the form of a short reading and a practical exercise. For today, your exercise was to download the ODK Collect app on your Android phone so that we can practice with it. If you were not able to download the app for whatever reason, it's okay. If you could not download the ODK Collect app, we recommend you simply focus on the training presentation now. And then after the session, you can download the app and practice using it with the support of the training materials that we will send to you, including this PowerPoint. Now, because we have a significant amount of material to cover in the next 2 hours, we'll not be doing an introduction round, going through and introducing everyone. Please forgive us for this. But we invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat window if you've not already done so, or you can do it again because we've had other people join after you may have introduced it. So you can type your name, what country you're in, your organization, and your position. So we'll just give people a chance to go ahead and do that. Here's one from me. We have people joining, I've seen from Ethiopia, Nepal, Cambodia, Myanmar, India, Lebanon, wonderful, and several other countries. Claudia, could I ask you to go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Let's just take a few minutes to review the objectives of the training webinars. So there are 4 objectives. The first is that the participants, by the end of the training, they're able to understand the potential of mobile data collection as its support to development and humanitarian operations, but also the limitations. So when we say mobile data collection, a common abbreviation we use is MDC. The second is to be able to use the MDC tools which are designed for FACET, including ODK Collect app and the Kobo Toolbox. Kobo Toolbox is the platform or the server that runs this survey process, and we'll be finding out more about that today. The third is to be able to deploy or to implement a FACET survey from Kobo Toolbox account using mobile phones and conducting the data collection as a team. And the fourth is to be able to download the collected data and to analyze it using the FACET Excel analyzer. It runs the survey process. We'll be finding out more about that today. Or the server. Yes, we will be finding out more about the server. I'll just take you through the sessions now and show what will be covered in each session. Please, next slide, Claudia. So in the first session, which is today for the next 2 hours, we'll be having a brief introduction on MDC. We'll be looking at the advantages and disadvantages of using mobile data collection compared to more traditional paper-based survey approaches. We'll be having a presentation of how to manage a survey with ODK Collect and the Kobo Toolbox platform. And we'll also get started with using the Android smartphones and the ODK Collect app with the FACET survey form. In the next session, which is in next week, between the 2 sessions, there will be a homework. It will include a brief reading, but it will also include that you do a pilot survey using the survey form on your mobile phone. You can do that survey in a school or healthcare facility, but you can also do it in your office and just simulate a survey, just to get the experience of going through the process of both using the mobile data collection tools and also looking at the content of the survey forms. We have 2 forms. One is for WASH in healthcare facilities. Another one is for Blue schools. So during session 2 next week, on the 22nd of September, we'll be looking first at your feedback. How did you go through this experience? We'll clarify any questions on the content of the survey forms, either for Blue schools and for healthcare facilities. We'll be looking more in depth at the FACET survey form itself, and also helping you get to know your project's individual Kobo Toolbox account. And the third session will be several weeks after the second session. Between the second session and the third session, the homework will be to actually conduct your baseline survey, or to update your survey if you've already done a baseline survey according to the additional questions that need to be answered as per the Swiss Water and Sanitation Monitoring Framework. So there we'll be looking at how to download and review the collected data, import it into the FACET analyzer, and visualize the results on a dashboard. And then we'll be taking additional comments and questions on the whole FACET process, which will be used throughout the third phase of the consortium. Next slide, please. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce our trainer, Claudia Grégoire. Claudia is an information management specialist working at CartONG, who's our technical partner in doing this monitoring and evaluation support for the consortium. Claudia has been with CartONG for over 3 years, and she's one of the lead trainers on mobile data collection. Now, she's usually doing these trainings in the field and in person. So we're experimenting with a condensed version of the training in 3 sessions over the course of this approximately 1 month that we'll be conducting this training. So we're hoping that the combination of theoretical sessions with some practice, some practical exercises in between the sessions, as well as a guided and constant support via a hotline can be a good recipe for this platform phase. So I'll be looking into the chat window as we go through the presentation and collecting the questions, and we'll be pausing to address those from time to time. So with that, Claudia, I'm pleased to pass you the parole.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hello, nice to meet you all. Thank you very much for being with us today during this first session of the webinars. So the plan for today will be to look into the mobile data collection, first of all, to see what we mean by mobile data collection, see its advantages and disadvantages. Then also quickly look into the SWSC FACET forms, the 2 forms. And then we will be further looking into the tools that we will be using, the mobile data collection tools. First of all, briefly introducing them with their interactions and their different steps, the ODK Collect application and the server Kobo Toolbox. And once we have done that, we will further look, we will dig into the ODK Collect application. We will start with this one. To get to know it, to see how we can access the surveys from it, how we can fill in the data, as this application is the one used to collect the data, as we will see further on during this session. And during next week's session 2, we will be looking into the Kobo Toolbox, into the survey itself, and further look into how they interact and how to manage the survey and the data and so on. So thank you all, and do not hesitate so during this training, of course, you'll be hearing quite a lot of my voice today during 2 hours. But if you have any questions, if you don't hear me clearly or something is not clear enough, feel free to drop in your request or your question on the group chat, and John will be monitoring on a regular basis, and we will be replying to them on a regular basis as well. So don't hesitate to write anything that you might have misunderstood or not heard very well in the group chat during this session. Okay, so let's start first with a brief introduction to the mobile data collection. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, good. Now, what is mobile data collection? First things first, what do we mean by that? So we, as John said, oh, my apologies, as John said, we usually write this MDC, mobile data collection. But what is it? Basically, it's a data collection, but by using a new technology to collect the data. and basically it's through the smartphones or tablets instead of the paper forms. So it's a data collection using smartphones and tablets. Android phones. This is very important, as also in John's instructions. The ODK, you'll see that the ODK Collect application will not work on iPhone, so it has to be an Android phone, a smartphone or a tablet. Now, mobile data collection has a wide range of solutions depending on the operating system, the requirements. You could do it through SMS, you could have different export formats of your data. It could be online with the internet connection or completely offline. It will also depend on your cloud storage, whether it's paying or not. Some solutions are free of charge and some others are not. So you have a wide range of solutions, and we are using one of them for the FACET surveys. Now, the possible use cases of mobile data collection will be for surveys, for assessments, potentially in emergency or post-emergency, for tracking of distributions or such, for monitoring and evaluation, and so on and so on. So you could have all kinds of possible use cases. And now on our side, on CartONG side, so as you will see, mobile data collection was being made possible since 2018, and we have started testing it since 2019. And since 2020, it's being used at a large scale more and more. And nowadays, it's being used quite a lot. Now, as we were saying that it uses a certain technology, the mobile technology is a major improvement in information management. And this has made possible the mobile data collection. And now it's possible that the big advantage with paper-based data collection, now it's possible to collect and to analyze your data in real time or almost near real time. So basically, you don't need to wait for your data collection to be finalized to start cleaning the data and analyzing it, as the data will come as it's sent, as it's collected, so you'll be able to have access to it much earlier than compared to traditional data collection. So you'll be able to do this much earlier in your process. So this is a big advantage in information management. Now, you might have heard of OpenDatakit, or as some people call it, ODK. Now, ODK Collect is the application that we will be using for data collection in the FACET surveys, but also for other surveys that you might do in the future using mobile data collection. But there is also the OpenDatakit ODK environment. And this is actually one of the most well-known MDC solutions in the humanitarian sector. There are others that we will not be looking into them, but there are others that exist. And this is an open source solution for Android that is widely used, that is the basis for numerous systems. It's powerful and flexible, and it has a secure storage on your own servers that is possible. So within this OpenDatakit ODK environment, there are different deployment profiles that are possible, whether completely offline, if you don't have an internet connection, with USB, offline on the local network, online using internet, and so on. And actually the Kobo Toolbox, that is the platform where your questionnaire will be, your form will be, and your data will be, and the ODK Collect application through which we'll collect the data, are part of the system, and those are a free of charge solution, part of this ODK ecosystem. So just for you to see the big picture before we dig deeper into the Kobo Toolbox and ODK Collect applications. Now, there's quite a lot of information here, but it's just to provide you again the big picture. So we said it's this mobile data collection was being made possible by having smartphones and tablets. And we had our first mobile phone in 1983, for example, but it was not possible to actually do mobile data collection up until the point where we had an Android, the first Android in 2008, sorry. until then, it was not possible. And since that point in time, when we had the first Android and then the first tablets, well, the iPad will not work again, such as the iPhones as well. But since we had the Android and the tablet, that's the point where we were able to develop the mobile data collection and use it at the large scale since then. Okay. Now, of course, as everything in life, there are advantages and disadvantages to each one of the options we have for anything in life. And of course, mobile data collection follows in that case. So, if you have any questions or anything is unclear, feel free to a question in the group chat. Yes, thank you. So mobile data collection, what are its advantages and disadvantages? Of course, it's not always only advantages or only disadvantages. We should see the both sides. Now, in terms of advantages, so one of the first advantages of mobile data collection compared to more traditional data collection, such as paper-based, for instance, is that we have an improved data quality and analytical capacities with integrated calculation, data validation constraints, and skip logic. For instance, let's say you have a typical question, have you received a distribution in the past month? Yes or no type of question. And then if they say yes, you would like to know what kind of items they have received during that last distribution during last month. That is what we call the skip logic. As if they say no, I haven't received anything, the following question where you request what kind of items they have received would have to be skipped. And in a paper version, a paper data collection, paper-based data collection, well, that question will be on the paper still. And it would have to be you knowing that you have to skip that question because it doesn't make sense to ask them. They told you that they didn't receive anything, so you will not ask them what they have received. On mobile phones, by using mobile data collection, that skip logic will be done automatically. So when you prepare your questionnaire, you'll put a skip logic on that second question and you'll tell it, please appear only if they say yes to the first question. So those kind of things allow for higher quality of data, improved quality of data, and also analytical capacities. Into the mobile phone, you can also do calculations. For instance, the total quantity of water per day, per person, and so on. You can also have what we call data validation constraints, meaning if you request how many people do you have in your household, you don't expect them to say -1. You expect them to say at least 1 because you're interviewing a person, and maybe, I don't know, maximum of 30, maximum if they're, I don't know, 50, 100, it's starting to be unlikely, very unlikely. So you can put constraints on the phones, on your smartphones when you do mobile data collection, which is not the case on paper-based mobile data collection. Another advantage of mobile data collection is that you can have an integrated tool to collect different types of multimedia as well, which is not possible with paper-based data collection, such as GPS coordinates, GPS points, pictures. You can even have signatures, audio recordings, barcodes, and so on and so on. So in one single questionnaire, you can have all those types of multimedia that can be integrated into it. Another advantage of mobile data collection is that it is time-saving. It's easier and faster in terms of data cleaning and analysis. On a paper-based data collection, you'll have to first write the answers on the papers, and then you have to input that in a database on your computers when you come back to the office, and then start cleaning the data and then start analyzing it, and so on and so on. Whereas in mobile data collection, the data is directly entered on the phones and directly sent the way they are to the server. So all that steps of having to enter the data into a database, all those steps do not exist anymore. It's done automatically. It's automatically sent to the server. Also, another advantage is that you can do a better day-to-day monitoring of the data collection process, and you have a possibility of remote access to data. You can do things remotely, which is not the case with more traditional data collection such as paper-based. It's also cost-saving in the long run. You have less human resources needed, and you don't need the data entry clerks, the ones that will be entering the data from the paper to the database, for instance. Now, we're saying cost-saving in the long run, and we say long run for a reason. The reason is that acquiring, purchasing all those smartphones, you might need several smartphones for your data collection, and purchasing those in the beginning can be a bit costly. However, if you look at the long run, compared to paper-based data collection, it's still cost-saving as with time, you'll be using those tablets or smartphones for several data collections. So at some point there will be, their costs will be rentabilized. How do you say that in English? So in the end, you'll be saving. It will be cost-saving for you, even though at the very beginning it may be more costly than other data collections. Another advantage is that you would have a centralized online archiving. You have a reduced risk of data loss if it's well managed. So you can centralize the data in one place, you can archive it there, and you can store it if they're, I don't know, compared to having your paper-based data collection stored physically in one place, and then you have a fire and then everything goes into ash. Well, that cannot happen with mobile data collection, as this is centralized in one place. You could make a copy of it somewhere else, but it's going to be there. It's going to stay there. It's not going to be altered. And also another advantage is that interviewers go lighter in the field. Instead of having a big pack of papers for the interviews on paper-based, they will only have one smartphone or a tablet with them, through which they can do all the questionnaires with the beneficiaries or interviews. So this is it for the advantages. Now let's look at the other side, the disadvantages, as there are also quite a few of them as well. Now, in terms of disadvantages of mobile data collection, there is a longer preparation phase for designing, coding, and testing the survey. So for you to be able to have this survey available for on your phones, you need to design it first, to code it. So you will not need to do it yourselves. We do this for you for the SWSC FACET surveys. But if you do any other type of mobile data collection, you might have to do it yourself. And this is the phase of preparation and coding and putting in place and testing the survey is longer than on paper-based mobile data collection. Sorry. And it's really important to test it a lot, as if you have any issues in your form in the beginning, and you go and collect the data with those issues, it might be challenging for you to still collect the data. So this phase of preparation is really, really important, and it's longer. It could also be intimidating and create distance with the person that is interviewed. And in some contexts, it might not be appropriate as well to have this mobile phone with you or this tablet, and you go and interview people with it. It's really important to explain to the interviewees that what you're doing with this phone, it's not that you're going to take a picture of them or record them without them consenting or anything, that this is an interview done for this purpose, and so on and so on. Otherwise it can be intimidating for them, and they might even refuse to reply to your questions. It could also be a safety issue for some staff in some contexts. For instance, those smartphones and tablets have a certain value, money value, so you could be a target for theft and things like that if you're not careful with it. If you have this pink bright tablet that you're like showing around in places where this could be a target for theft, then you might also be a target, and some people might attempt to steal it. Now it will require more technical skills in the project system implementation. For instance, you might need a longer training, as during the training of enumerators, you would have to make sure that, of course, they're comfortable enough with the survey, but also with the technology around it, with the smartphones. So you might need to spend a bit more time in the training of enumerators to make sure that they all feel comfortable with the technology in question. And they would also have to have the adaptive skills for this. This technology could also be fragile and expensive at first, and there might be some risk of technical issues. So this is related to the smartphones and the tablets. You need to be careful with it, that if you break it, it might require that you buy a new one or to fix it, so it might cost you a bit more. And also another big disadvantage is that you are dependent on electricity for you to use this technology, and you're also dependent on the internet connection for the data synchronization in some situations. As the FACET surveys are done with Kobo Toolbox, that is an online tool server, then indeed you are depending on electricity and the internet connection for this. So if you go to very remote places for, I don't know, for let's say 5 to 6 days to do a data collection, you need to think of how you'll be able to charge your mobile phones, how to send the data, and so on and so on. And this is not adapted to a qualitative survey. So what do I mean by qualitative surveys? Those are the type of questions where you ask open questions. For instance, what do you think of the situation? And you expect a long reply with a lot of information in it, a lot of details, and the answers could be very different from one to the other. So this is a qualitative survey where you don't ask specific and precise questions. You ask them to tell you, to describe to you a certain situation, and so on and so on. So mobile data collection is not adapted for that. Mobile data collection is mainly for quantitative surveys, meaning yes or no type of questions, questions where you select an answer or several answers, and so on and so on.
Claudia?
Yes,
We just have a couple questions in the chat, and especially one I'd like to clarify early on. So Sopip is asking, in case we use the offline data collection, it would be good if the field staff could have in hand the paper-based form. Could you just clarify what we mean by offline and online within mobile data collection?
On my side?
Yes, I don't know if you can see Sopip's question.
Yes, I can see it. I can see it. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is offline data collection?
Okay, so offline data collection is without online internet connection. So basically, a typical offline data collection would be to have your own server installed. So you will have a router. For instance, you'll say that your computer is a server, is the Kobo Toolbox. This is where you have a questionnaire, this is where you have your data, and you have a router through which you'll create a connection from this server, which is your computer, to the mobile phones that you have in front of the computer. And this is how you'll send the data and the questionnaire. So it's something that is local. So you could not do this, for instance, remotely. You could not have your computer in one town and then your phones in another town, and then you send your data and your surveys this way. So it's something that is local, and it doesn't use internet connection. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a paper-based form in that case, because you will still have your questionnaire on your phone. It's just a matter of how you transfer the questionnaire and the data from the place where you store it, which is the server. You could have the questionnaire in paper with you, but it's more to help the enumerators. I don't know if they get lost in the questionnaire to know where they are at and so on. But I wouldn't recommend to collect the data on that paper. You can still, even if it's an offline data collection, meaning not using internet, you can still do it on your phone.
So thanks for that, Claudia. If the survey is downloaded on the phone and the phone is charged, you can do the survey anywhere. But when you get back to the office, or when you get back to a place where you have an internet connection, then you can synchronize. Yes. So the data collection is done offline, but when you come back online, then you can load that onto the server.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
And
great.
line in comparison to online is that you're doing this locally. This process of synchronizing is done locally instead of with an internet connection.
Great, thank you. Another question about from Singun, who is designing and coding the survey? The FACET survey has been designed and coded as a collaboration between the creators of FACET, and it's already done for us. Right now, we're contextualizing it, we're updating it for the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium, and that's being done by the members of the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium Management Unit with the technical support of CartONG. So those 15 projects will receive on already a prepared, customized form, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a question about iOS, if iOS, so iOS, I believe, is the iPhone operating system, or is it just, yes.
Yes.
So is there an ODK version planned for iOS?
No, not yet, not from our knowledge.
Okay.
This hasn't been since the beginning, and we haven't had any information on this yet. Now, a good software alternative for NDC for iOS. So for FACET, it will not be possible to use iOS. So you'd have to have an Android or a tablet, but not iPhone or yes, you could not use an iPhone, unfortunately. Now, a software alternative for iOS for other data collections, there might be. It's not used at a large scale, so in any case, it will be less developed than what is now on Android, so I wouldn't recommend it. I would always recommend to go for the Android. If you wish, I can come back to you on this, Michael. But this will not be possible for the FACET surveys anyways. As we use ODK Collect for data collection, this is not available on iPhones. Then I see, should I go further with the questions? Yeah.
I think that it's okay for now because we'll be explaining ODK again in more detail. Jahan was asking for this. Mm-hmm. And there is another question from Jagannath about ODK having any limitations on collecting multimedia data. I think we're also going to cover that as we go forward.
Yes, yes. Yes, sure. If I just mention something about this, so you could collect basically, so as we were mentioning before, you can collect images, video, you can even do videos, recordings, you can collect GPS, you can have signatures, so you can have all types of multimedia that is collected. The only, and there is no like limitation per se for that. The only thing that I would keep in mind is that the more multimedia you collect in one questionnaire, the more your database will become heavy. So just keep that in mind. I wouldn't do a survey full of with only images and photos, and I would attempt to keep a balance in that, so that it doesn't make my database very, very heavy. Okay.
I think we can proceed, Claudia.
Yes, we can proceed. Okay, sure, with pleasure. Okay, now let's look at the SWSC FACET. So what type of questionnaires do we have? What do we mean by this, and so on. So as John said in the beginning, this was first developed by Eawag and TDH in 2018 with the support from GMP, WHO, UNICEF, the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, and ourselves, CartONG, on the technical side. This is a short and easy to use mobile assessment and monitoring tool that was developed to do evaluations of water, sanitation, hygiene, waste management, and environmental cleaning in two contexts. In, first of all, healthcare facilities, and this is what we call the FACET WYH, and in schools, and this is what we call the FACET WYNS, YIH and YINS, sorry. So there are two questionnaires, and you'll see when we will be connecting on ODK Collect, and we will download the questionnaires on your phones on ODK Collect, you'll see that those 2 questionnaires are available there, as you always have the choice of those 2. And this was adapted for the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium, the SWSC monitoring framework, in its 3rd phase, and it includes the blue schools. Now, this covers baseline and NMI surveys and annual monitoring of outcome indicators. Okay, good. Now, let's go further. Now, as you were saying, yes. Okay, okay. Now, as we were saying before, FACET is based on the OpenDatakit environment and suite of tools, and it is coded in a standard format that is called XLS form, which is widely used in the humanitarian and development sectors and even beyond for collecting input from web and mobile-based forms. Now, don't worry too much about this XLS form, as we have already, it is already ready for you. And we can do all the work that needs to be done on it. So it's just for you to know, to have the big picture on how this is being created and in which format and so on. Now, the tools, as we were saying before, this OpenDatakit environment ecosystem has different types of tools. You could use any others depending on your needs and whether it's free of charge or not. But the ones we'll be using, the tools we'll be using in order to be able to conduct and analyze a FACET survey will be, first of all, the ODK Collect, and this is what we call the app. This application is used to collect the data itself. So it's used for the mobile data collection. Then on the other side, you have the Kobo Toolbox. That is the platform where both the questionnaire and the data is stored. And this is what we call the server. So this will be used for the survey and data management. And also for the analysis part, we'll be using a tool that has been developed for FACET that is called the FACET Excel Analyzer tool. Now today, during today's session, we'll be looking in details at ODK Collect, the app. And in session 2, we'll be looking at the Kobo Toolbox, the server. And in session 3, we'll be using FACET Excel Analyzer tool. Okay, now. Let me know, John, when to stop if there are any questions. Or,
well, yeah, maybe this is a good time.
Yes.
Sopipa has just mentioned that he already installed the app, Kobo and ODK, in his phone, but it did not work for getting all the forms or starting the test on FACET. Therefore, when we'll move to this session, I'd like to focus more on the subject. Actually, Sopipa, just stay tuned. We're going to come to that, and
Yes.
you'll see how you can upload those forms.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question on whether the tool supports questionnaires in Khmer. So this is a good question. If you have a local language and you need to have the survey done in local language, right now the languages that FACET is using is English and French, the primary languages of the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium. We will be preparing and deploying or offering these tools. If your project has a particular need to translate that questionnaire into a local language, with your project budget, we can work with you. You would have to assure the translation into local language, and then with CartONG, we can support that local language will appear as an option in your survey form. But please, let's take that question after offline, and please see that as well with your regional advisor. And I'm thinking there's one other question, which is about if we want to add more questions to the XLS form, do we need to edit it by ourselves, or will someone edit it for us? This is also a very good question. For the 15 Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium projects, we will be doing all of the editing on that form because we want to make sure that it is somehow set in a certain way. It doesn't mean that if you are a project or you have a different project and you want to adapt the form to meet your own needs, that you can't do it by yourself. You could do it, especially if you have some capacity with Excel tools. But for the 15 Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium projects in Phase 3, we'll be making the edits. If you do have a few questions that you would like to add in part of the survey, please contact me and we can see how we can add that for you.
Sorry, John.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, you're from Cambodia. I'm Singun, yeah.
Yes, please.
I believe they have muted themselves.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, we're not sure about the, we follow up our question regarding the coding to the survey form. Because that we found in Cambodia, we had to align with the government Ministry of Education regarding the WIN work in school minimum standard, and there are a few specific, for example, like deworming and toothbrushing. That is the national requirement for work in school. So how we can put this question in the HS file, and this coding is recognized, and how we to develop that or how to adapt that. So Singha question, it come to that point.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that question. It's very clear. If there are particular questions given the context that you're working in, like you mentioned, the Cambodian government is requiring a certain question or indicator, or you have a different project funding and you have other indicators that you have to satisfy for your other donor, we can help you to adapt the form. And we will be sending you some material after this session where you can enter what those questions are. Of course, we hope there's not going to be 20 or 30 questions. There's a limit to what we can do. But if there are a few key questions that you absolutely need to have in this form, then we can make that happen. Okay, great. Back to you, Claudia.
Sure. There might be a few questions. There's one on the ONA platform. Should I also reply?
Sure,
So,
please.
Yes, so is FACET similar to ONA platform? Yes and no. FACET is using Kobo Toolbox platform, which is another choice of the ODK ecosystem. ONA platform is a second option you could have. It's not a free of charge as Kobo Toolbox. It's you have a certain amount to pay on a regular basis, and there are similarities. For instance, the data collection application might look quite similar, but it's still another solution, another mobile data collection solution of the ODK OpenDatakit ecosystem. So yeah, hopefully that replies to your question. Now, does ODK have any data protection issues, as Kobo is not suggested for collecting sensitive data? I want to know from data protection perspective. Yes, very good question. So this, correct me if I'm wrong, John, this form does not collect a lot of sensitive data. So in terms of data protection issues, by using Kobo Toolbox, it should be fine. However, if, for instance, you might have to do, I don't know, child protection assessment or things that are that have quite a lot of sensitive data, then in that sense, indeed, some other platforms and tools might be more advised. So yes, very, very good question. I believe in our context, it's fine using Kobo Toolbox, but for other type of surveys in other sectors and other databases with sensitive data, another tool and another solution might be more adapted. Okay, and then a question: how to ensure data quality with the Kobo Toolbox? We will look into the Kobo Toolbox server on session 2, so we will keep that in mind and we will look into it. So this is rather for session 2. If that's okay for you, we'll look into this next week. But yes, very good question as well, the data quality. Okay, great. Thank you. Now, feel free to, if you have any other questions, feel free to always jump in on the chat. Now, let's have a look at the, so we said ODK Collect, Kobo Toolbox, and then the FACET Excel Analyzer. Now, let's have a look at how those two how those three actually, the analyzer will be looking into it further on once we have the data that has been collected. So because we will need collected data for that. But let's look at how those tools are linked, how to use them, and how they communicate with each other, and so on and so on. Now, okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, let's first have a look at so it contains quite a lot of information, this slide, but it's necessary to have the big picture before jumping into one or the others of the phases. Now, those are you could write them differently, like in more details, or but this is the big picture of the phases of mobile data collection. So basically, the first phase will be to design your questionnaire, your form, your even your analysis plan, to put everything in place and to have everything ready in order to collect the data, which is phase 2. So you first prepare everything, everything is ready, everything is deployed and so on, and then you collect the data. Once you collect the data, then those two, collect and manage, they kind of interact with each other in mobile data collection. As we were saying before, you don't have to wait for data collection to be finalized for you to be already able to look at the data. You can already do that on the first phase of data collection. So you collect and manage the data at the same time. And then once the data collection has been finalized, data is cleaned, you can start analyzing the data and writing reports, analysis reports, and so on and so on. And now in each one of those phases, the tools, there are different tools that we use, those 3 tools basically. Now, for the design phase, the preparation phase, as we were saying before, the questionnaires, the FACET surveys or questionnaires are prepared in XLS form. And don't worry about this. This is already ready. We can support you in adapting it and so on. But just for you to know, this is in XLS form. And basically what you will do is you will take those XLS form, and this is an exercise we will be doing next session. You take those questionnaires in XLS form and you put them on the Kobo Toolbox server. And for it to be ready for data collection. And once the questionnaires are ready, you have tested them, everybody was trained, the animators are ready, everybody's ready for data collection, then you'll take your ODK Collect applications on your smartphones, you'll connect them to the server in order to have those questionnaires on your phones and collect the data. Once you collect the data, you'll be sending it again to Kobo Toolbox, that will manage the data and clean it and so on and so on. And then once the data collection is finalized, data is cleaned and so on, you can analyze it with the FACET Excel Analyzer tool. And this will be done during session 3. So if you saw here, this is the ODK Collect, so the collect phase with the ODK Collect application, this is what we're going to look into today. Now in session 2, we will look at the design and the manage phases of the data collection, as we will be working on the Kobo Toolbox server. And in session 3, as we will have the data that will be collected, ready to analyze, we will be using the FACET Excel Analyzer tool in order to analyze it and see how the results look like. I see. Okay. Can I jump in on a question, John?
Certainly, yes.
Yes. I have a question, very interesting question. Why not collect on Kobo Collect if we are using Kobo Toolbox? Very good question. Now, Kobo Collect, so for information, the application we are using for FACET is ODK Collect. However, you could use other applications indeed. And another one would be Kobo Collect. Now, when you see Kobo Toolbox and then you think Kobo Collect, yeah, that makes sense. I could use this one. Why use ODK Collect instead? That's a very good question. You don't necessarily have to use, first thing, you don't necessarily have to use Kobo Collect because you're using Kobo Toolbox server. You could use any data collection application that is compatible with Kobo Toolbox. There could be others, no worries. Now, we have made the choice to use ODK Collect and not Kobo Collect, as the developers behind those two applications are not the same. And as on any technology or application or device, you might sometimes encounter bugs And we have realized that the ODK Collect application is updated on a much more regular basis than Kobo Collect. And if you have for instance, we had once a bug on Kobo Collect, and we had to stay with it for almost a year, as they were doing like I believe the earliest they would do an update of the application was every 3-4 months, even 6 months. So for that amount of time, you would have that bug with you on the application, whereas ODK Collect had already debugged it. So, and also in terms of settings of the application, ODK Collect are much more, how should I call them, avant-gardists, meaning they have fancier and more developed settings compared
Cutting
to...
edge.
Sorry?
Cutting edge.
Yes, cutting edge. That's the word. Thank you. So this is why we chose to use ODK Collect, because for us it's a much more stable application. If you encounter any issues, any bugs, or anything, you can, you know, from our experience, you can count much more on ODK Collect than on Kobo Collect, where on Kobo Collect you might have that bug for a longer period of time. So this is why we use ODK Collect and not Kobo Collect. Now, be careful with those two applications on your phone. Never have the two at the same time on a smartphone. Those two have the same, use the same directory on your phone, and when you open them, you'll see, except that it's written ODK Collect and Kobo Collect, they look the same. So they have the same basis, they use the same directory, and if you have the two of them on a smartphone, they would interact with each other and bug each other. So please make sure that when you will do your data collection for the FACET, you use ODK Collect, and you don't have Kobo Collect installed somewhere in the background of your phone, as this might interact with ODK Collect and you might have unexpected bugs in the middle of a data collection and things like that. Hopefully I replied to the question. So,
thanks, Claudia. There's a question about when you enter data. This is from Gigi. When you enter data, does it analyze by itself the data?
I will not spend too much time on this, as this is rather for session 2 and 3. You'll see that on Kobo Toolbox, you already have some analysis, some brief analysis options that are available directly on the server. And on the FACET Excel analyzer tool, yes, as for some indicators and some graphs, will as soon as you enter the questionnaire and the data collected with that questionnaire, you will see that it will analyze it on the analyzer tool. However, on ODK Collect application, you will not have any analysis. It's just for data collection. So you have, to a certain extent, on the Kobo Toolbox server, and particularly on the FACET Excel analyzer tool, as this has been specifically built up for that purpose. Okay.
Yeah, and just one clarification on that. So the
Yes.
FACET analyzer is automatically showing the graphs for the outcome indicators, which have already been agreed by the Swiss Water and Sanitation Consortium. As you mentioned, Claudia, there is another way to select which kinds of questions you want to analyze and which kind of graph you'd like to see, but the user would have to do that themselves, either using the FACET analyzer tool, which is in Excel, or in the Kobo Toolbox online version. So if your project is adding additional questions, these wouldn't necessarily be shown directly in the FACET Excel analyzer tool automatically, but you would be able to generate a graph based on a configuration that we would have to make.
Yes. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Yes, good. So now let's look at the next slide. So I just wanted to insist on this interaction between Kobo Toolbox and ODK Collect, as maybe in the beginning it's not that easy to see which has what role. And so this, basically in this slide, I wanted to show to you how they communicate with each other. So for information, so Kobo Toolbox is an online tool. So it's online. You'll need internet. So basically at this stage, when one communicates with another, you need to have an internet connection. Kobo Toolbox already has it, as it's online. You will need to go on a browser and connect to it in order to see what you have there. but also on ODK Collect on your smartphone, at the time when you communicate with Kobo Toolbox, you will need to have an internet connection at that time. Now, when you do, so the first thing you'll do, so as I was saying before, Kobo Toolbox, we have the questionnaire available there for all smartphones to come and pick it up, to download it. And then once ODK Collect will collect the data, we'll send it to Kobo Toolbox. So this is what you have on Kobo Toolbox. You have the survey, the questionnaire, the surveys, and the data once it's collected and sent. Now, ODK Collect is used to collect the data. So the first thing that you have to do is connect to the server and then download what we call blank form. So here you'll see, this is a screenshot of ODK Collect. The term blank form means questionnaire, basically. So you'll connect, you make sure you have Wi-Fi or 3G or 4G, connect to the server, and then download your questionnaire here. After you've done it offline, you can even put on flight mode, it's fine. Your questionnaire will stay there up until the point where you delete it yourself, and you can use it to collect as much data as you want. So at that period of time, you're not communicating with Kobo Toolbox anymore. You're doing things on your side completely offline, and you can do it without an internet connection. If you have one, it's also fine, but you don't necessarily have to have one. Then, once you have collected your data here on ODK Collect, everything is correct, you have checked it, you're ready to send it to the server, it's final, it's okay, you're good with everything. You want to send it to Kobo Toolbox so that everything is in one place. At that time, you have to make sure you have an internet connection again. You have to make sure that you are connected to this server, as you could connect to another one actually. And then once you have those two things in place, you can upload the results to Kobo Toolbox, send all your data to Kobo Toolbox. And you will leave your phone. Your questionnaire will remain here up until the point where you delete it yourself manually, but the data will leave your phone and send the data to Kobo Toolbox online. So this is their interactions, basically, their roles and how they interact. And this interaction here needs internet. When you are here at this stage, you don't necessarily need internet. When you're on Kobo Toolbox, it's online, so and whatever happens, you will need internet. And the communication between the two will need internet as well. All good? Yes? Okay. Now that we have looked at the different phases of a data collection, we know which tools we're using for which phase, how they interact with each other, through which means, why use this application, not that one, and so on and so on. Let's dip deeper into the ODK Collect application on the smartphones, on the Androids, which is the one used to collect the data. So basically, in the previous graph on the phases, we will be here at this stage, at the collect the data stage and the ODK Collect application. Now, the homework for today's session was to download the ODK Collect applications on your phones. Now, as John was saying before, if you haven't, we will not be doing this during the today's webinar. Yes, we will look into that, the difference between fill blank form and get blank form, no worries. Now, we will not be doing this today together, and as this might take some time depending on internet connection. So if you haven't managed to do it so far, feel free to do it afterwards. You'll have access to this presentation and to all the training materials. So you should be able, by looking at those slides, to do it afterwards. So don't worry, don't panic if you don't have it. It's fine. If you have it, that's great, and so we will be able to explore it together today. Now, for all those not having downloaded the application yet, so basically you have to go on your Android phone, on Google Play Store. So this is the place on Android phones where you basically install all applications on your phone, and search for ODK Collect and then click on install. Again, for those knowing Kobo Collect as well and that have used it in the past, make sure that you don't have Kobo Collect. Uninstall Kobo Collect and install ODK Collect so that the two of them will not interact with each other. Now, in terms, yes, the version of ODK Collect for downloading, When you download it first, it should download the latest version to you. So you shouldn't have to worry too much about that. However, if you have had your ODK Collect application for a long time on your phone, you might need to update it once in a while. Now, you don't always, yes, exactly. You will only have one version available when you upload it, when you download it for the first time. You don't have to download each one of the versions if you're like one version behind it. Sometimes it's fine. No, it's not the end of the world. But yes, make sure that if it's a very, very old version, to update it at least, so that you have as ODK Collect is constantly improving their application. It's a shame if you don't take advantage of all those functionalities and debugging and all that work they're doing on a regular basis. Okay, so now this is how you install the application. Now, when you install your application for the first time, you will be connected. So your application ODK Collect can connect to Kobo Toolbox, but the server. But on Kobo Toolbox, the server, you could have different logins. You have all types of logins of different servers on Kobo Toolbox that you can connect to. And there is only one specific one that is of interest to you. The one that has, for instance, for today, the one that has the FACET training materials. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you're connecting to the correct server. As when you download it for the first time, you'll be connected to a very generic one that is, you have some exercises there, but not much of interest for you. So in order to do so, you will need to enter the application. So this is, when you enter, this is the main page. If you don't have some buttons here, or if I don't have them, but you do, it's fine. This is just a matter of customizing your main menu on ODK Collect. So you might not have, for instance, view send form. This is something you can take off. It's fine, don't worry about that. You can always manage it through the settings. Now, you can enter the application, and then you should click on those three dots here once in the application. And this is basically the settings. And in order to connect to the server, you need to click on general settings. And then you have different types of general settings. So you have to choose server. And then once you click on server, you'll arrive here. This is a screenshot of where you enter the information. And basically, in order to connect to a server, you will need the URL, the username, and the password. Now, there are cases where you will only need the URL, and this is something that is managed from the server. And I will show you tomorrow how you can do that, no worries. But let me first explain what is URL, what is username and password. URL, I usually compare it with GPS coordinates. So you have this Kobo Toolbox that is an online tool for data collection. It's a server, and it's free of charge, and anyone can create an account and use it. So basically, you have to tell it for first of all, which Kobo Toolbox you're going to connect to, and then to which specific account you're going to connect to. And this is the location of it. The URL is the location. And it's really, really important that you are putting the right location. You don't forget anything. You don't inverse the letters. For instance, I don't know, when you have humanitarian response, you have that many letters, you may inverse one with another. You really need to put the correct URL, as otherwise you will not be able to identify where it is. You will not be able to connect to it. Then, once you're at this URL, in most of the cases, unless you tell to the server not to do so, which I'll show you tomorrow, next week, sorry, how to do, you will have to provide the login. You need to say, okay, I will connect with this username and this password. And this is why you have to enter those three informations in a regular situation, in order to connect to the server and be able to download, to have access to the questionnaire and send the data and so on and so on. Now, if there's an error, for instance, in the URL, the username, or the password itself, when you are at this stage here, ODK Collect will not necessarily tell you, be careful, there's an error. I don't know what you're talking about. It will not tell you anything here at this stage. It will accept whatever you wish to input here, And when you will go back and attempt to download to connect to the server and download the questionnaire, that's the point where it will tell you, I'm sorry, I cannot find what you are telling me to the place you're telling me to go to. I don't know where that is. So just be careful when you enter here, you'll not have an error message telling you, oh no, this is wrong. You will just accept whatever you have here. And it's later on in the process that you'll realize that something went wrong. Now, as you've been told by John at the beginning, after this session, in between session 1 of today and session 2 of next week, you'll have to do a short pilot of the global FACET, SWSC FACET surveys in order to test them. And the credentials for this, for you to be able to access those surveys for the pilot are the following. So you'll have the URL here, the username and the password. Now, as you see here, you will only need the URL, and this is something that I have. It's a setting that I put on the server itself, so that you don't have to put the username and password. So by just putting this address here, you'll be able to access both surveys and test them for the pilot. This, remember, this presentation will be shared with you later on. Now, I see a lot of questions coming in. Shall I?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay.
Satya, I just wanted to review the why we should not have both ODK Collect and Kobo Collect on the smartphone. You just wanted to clarify that?
Sure. Yes. So why not Kobo Collect and ODK Collect at the same time on a smartphone? This is because those applications are not developed and maintained by the same developers, but they have very similar functionalities. And they also use the same place on the phone where to store their data and the application itself and so on. So as they're using the same place of storage on the phone, and they are also quite similar as well, your phone might get confused if you have the two of them at the same time. You might either you attempt to go into ODK Collect and then it opens Kobo Collect for you, or you're in the middle of a data collection on ODK Collect and then Kobo Collect jumps in and creates a big error message that should not be there, but it's there because Kobo Collect is attempting to do something in the background. So those two, if you have them on the same phone, it could go well. Sometimes they stay put together, no worries, but it could go very wrong as well. So and they might interact with each other and interact and create errors and issues during the data collection. So this is why we recommend not having the two of them at the same time on the same smartphone. And use ODK Collect, not Kobo Collect. Now, the difference between fill blank form and get blank form in ODK Collect, we will see it further on in this session, so no worries for that. Now the versions, that was fine. Please say this again. I have Kobo Collect. Okay, should I? Yes, indeed. So Satyanarayan, yes, please, on this specific phone, please disinstall Kobo Collect. You can always put it back afterwards. If you need this for another data collection, then you can disinstall ODK Collect and install Kobo Collect again. Just make sure you have sent the data before that, because you might lose some information as well when you install and disinstall all the time. Yes, okay. Now, yes, now the clarification in the URL, indeed, between SWSC, FACET, and training, there is an underscore. That is an underscore, indeed, to confirm to you see. Oh, yes, thank you, Fatan. Sorry, I'm reading at the same time. Will you share the XLS form to deploy in Kobo? Yes. So this will be shared with you for the next session exercise, as you'll exercise. You'll do the exercise of deploying it yourself on Kobo Toolbox platform, indeed. Okay.
I think you've already answered that question, the value of using the ODK app.
Actually, no, it's another question. I believe it's another question. So my is referring to the online generated link, which is called
okay.
Yes, so that is another way of collecting the data, which is completely online. So let me, I don't know if I can go back in my presentation. Remember when I was telling you that you need an internet connection when ODK Collect interacts with the Kobo Toolbox. But when you're doing the ODK Collect data collection on ODK Collect, you can completely go offline. You don't need an internet connection. The one you're referring to is completely online, meaning even when you collect the data, you have to have an internet connection. And that is what we call Enketo. And indeed, that's another possibility to do a data collection.
I just want to clarify, I know I was muted, I'm sorry, but I need to just clarify that I have been using the link generated from Kobo, and we have been using it offline normally for our data collection. So what it does is that you can do data collection offline, and it just keeps piling up the submissions, and once you connect online, it just uploads everything to the server. So I just want to clarify that, share my experience with you guys.
Yeah, but you have to keep your browser open and make sure you don't set data. So it's, you have to be careful. Indeed, you can do it this way. It will queue actually. If you do 10 data collections with that form, it will stay on your phone, on your, on your browser. And then when you have internet, it will attempt to send them one by one. Indeed.
Exactly. So I thought maybe there is an added value of just using this specific app. Maybe like the interface is different or something that we could use while using data collection, but it does look like it's the same thing, right? If we just keep the browser open.
Yes. So I would say ODK Collect compared to the online Enketo form you're using to collect the data. The Enketo form, you have to have animators that have good skills so that you don't lose any data. The ODK Collect, you basically put the questionnaire on the application, and they can, unless they mistakenly delete it from their phone, they can collect all the data, and you're safer than on a browser with online forms where they might lose, don't know where the data is, and then they're like, oh, but I collected it, but I don't know where it is. On your phone, it's pretty obvious where it is, and you can have a better, let's say, control on your data collection. Whereas the Enketo, they will have to really know what they're doing, because otherwise it can get really messy and yeah, I don't know if you understand what I mean. But for animators that might be new to mobile data collection, to ODK Collect, to any of that, I would recommend rather going on ODK Collect application than doing things on the browser, as the browser might have some risks of losing data or information somewhere and having to redo things. Yeah, but indeed, that's a possibility. Thank you. Okay. So remember, you will receive those slides, and also we will connect to the server together later on. So to have access to the servers. Now, once you have entered the server settings, so you're telling your phone, ODK Collect, please connect to this specific server. This is where I have the information that I need. Then you need to make sure that you have an internet connection, because now you're going to start communicating with the server. That is an online server. So now you will attempt to have access to the surveys themselves. To download what we call the form, the questionnaire, or on ODK Collect, it's called blank form. When you're on ODK Collect and you see the term blank form, this means the questionnaire itself. Now, first of all, make sure you have the Wi-Fi on. Your server credentials are entered correctly into those 3 dots, then general settings, servers, and then at least the URL or URL, username, and password if needed. And in order to access your questionnaire, you'll need to click on Get Blank Form. So this means basically get my questionnaire. And as soon as you click on this, it will attempt to connect to the server. And if it connects correctly, it will show you everything that is visible on the server. If between this screenshot and this screenshot, it's either empty or well, if it's empty, it means maybe there's nothing on the server. But if it provides you like a bigger message or even a smaller one or something, it tells you, no, something is wrong, I didn't manage to do it. This is when it tells you that it was not able to connect directly to the server and see what it's there. So this could be either because of your Wi-Fi connection or internet connection, or it could be because of the credentials of the server that you entered here in the 3 dots. Maybe there's something wrong. So usually when this happens, what I would do is I would first check my connection. Is it fine? Yeah, it seems to be fine. Then maybe there's an error with the server. So I go here and look at the server. I'm like, okay, is there any error? Oh yes, there is a point missing here. Okay, so I'll put this. Maybe with this it will work. And then you can come back and again attempt to click on get plan form. And as soon as I see this, for instance, or anything else for another server, this means that I'm connected to the server and everything went well. So basically, here, as I was telling you, this server has both surveys, the WINS and WIH, sorry. And you'll be able to download one or the 2 of them, or just not at all, you just wanted to see what's there. So in order to do so, you need to select them. You can click either on select or all or clear all here if you have a huge list of forms. But you can also do it manually, one by one. Click on them to select them. And then click on Get Selected for the ODK Collect application to download the questionnaire physically on your phone. And once you have done that, when it tells you success, I have downloaded the forms, your questionnaires will stay on this ODK Collect application up until you either manually delete it yourself, up until you uninstall the application. And sometimes even when you install it back again, it's still there, but it depends. It's not guaranteed. But yes, it will stay there and you can use it as much as you want for as many data collection as you want up until you do something about it and get rid of it. So once you have your questionnaire on your phone, you'll be able to access it by clicking on Fill Blank Form. So blank form again is the questionnaire. So basically here it says fill in my questionnaire. So as soon as you click here, you will arrive at all the questionnaires that are on your phone, not the ones that are on the server, but the ones that you have physically downloaded on your phone. So if there's just one, it's going to be 1. If it's 10, it's going to be 10. And basically this is where the enumerators will access the questionnaire from as well when they will do the data collection. So it's fill blank form. Now, our recommendation for any type of data collection, not necessarily just FACET, but in general, you might, so as we were saying, the preparation phase of a mobile data collection can take quite a lot of time. You have some testing to do, then you might come back on your questionnaire and do a version 2 of it and then test it and no, it's not good yet, so I'm going to do version 3 of it, and so on and so on. So you might have different versions of your same questionnaire that you worked on during this phase, or your phone might have been used for another data collection, so you might have a questionnaire that has nothing to do with FACET that is still there. So when you prepare for data collection, when you train enumerators and you make sure everything is in order for you to go to the field or do remotely, if needs be, a data collection, a mobile data collection, make sure you delete all the unnecessary questionnaires, all the other versions of the same questionnaire, and all the other questionnaires that you don't need anymore for other data collections and so on, so that you only keep the one that enumerators need to click on to use for data collection. And I'm saying this because if you have, for instance, several versions of the same questionnaire that is there, your data will go to other places. It will be very messy afterwards, and your database will look different as well. So it's really make sure you only keep that one, so to avoid any confusion and any issues of data cleaning and analysis and so on, so that you don't have to recollect some data and all of that. So basically, this is where you'll access your questionnaire from. Now, once you are in a questionnaire, so you go to fill blank form here, you click on it, you have your questionnaire, you click on it to enter it, then you'll arrive into your questionnaire, and then you have different types of questions in your questionnaire. Now, let's have a look at what we could what we could have here, how we could go through this question. The first thing is the way you go from one questionnaire to the other. Okay, I see there's a question on the version of ODK Collect. That's fine. It's yes, no, it's fine. So as the question is, I have V127.2 on the presentation, but on my phone I have 1.27.4 because you probably just downloaded the application, or you did it a few days ago, or you have updated it. So no, don't worry, it's fine. It's not going to change the application or the question or anything. Don't worry about it. It just means that my screenshot here has an older version of ODK Collect than you have on your phone, but it will not change too many things. So it's just an update. There were two different updates that were done in between your version and my version. Okay, good. Okay, now, how do we go from one question to the other in the questionnaire itself? There are two ways of doing so. The first one, I will not be able to do it. I'm on a computer here, but on your phone, you'll be able to swipe from right to left or left to right in order to go from one question to the other. Or you could have those buttons here, the backward and forward buttons, and you can click on them to go from one question to the other. You can have one or the other or both of them. And basically, you'll be able to put this option in ODK Collect application. So when you are in the main menu here, you click on those three dots here, and then you'll open up the general settings. And then instead of going for the server as before, you go to user interface, like here, as you see here. And then you have several options here, but you have one that is called, you see it behind it, navigation. And as soon as you open it up, you have those three choices. Use horizontal swipes. So that's like from right to left or left to right. The buttons here or both. And you can choose as you wish. And then you can come back and go to the questionnaire and attempt to, yes, and attempt to go from one question to the other. Now, type of questions that you might encounter. The first type of question you might encounter is what we call a select one choice type of question. So basically you have your question. So for instance here, type of school, and then you have several choices with the circle. This is what we call the radio button next to each one of the choices, and then you can select. If it's a radio button, you can only select one. So here I can only select primary school or pre-primary school or anything else, but just one at a time. You have another type of question that we call select multiple choices, where it has the same, basically the same typology. You have the question itself, and then you have the choices. But instead of a radio button, a circle, you have a square. So whenever you have a square next to your choices, this means that you can choose several options. So here, as you can see, you could choose 3 different options. I can even choose all of them, or I can choose one. It's fine as well. Now, besides those questions with options, you could also have questions with text. So for instance, here, if other, please specify. So here we're expecting a text, like what do you mean? It means that at my previous question, I chose other as an option, and now I'm asked to specify what that other is. So I'm expected to put a text. I can put letters, spaces, special characters, numbers, anything that I need. Or I could have a number type of question, integer. So either put an integer or even a decimal with a comma and so on and so on. So I could have those type of 2 questions. Now, I could have a date type of question. So this is an example where you need to enter a date. So basically this is how it looks like. Date of the assessment, or date of this, or that, or and so on and so on. And then you have this button here, select date. And as soon as you click on it, you'll have this calendar opening up. So it could be either month, year, or month, day, year, as you can see here. And then you can scroll up and down like either with your finger, or like swipes up and down. And as soon as you have selected your date that you want to enter, you can click on OK, and it will put it here underneath the button. Now, this, you might have to have, you actually have a question on GPS coordinates. So as I was telling you, through mobile data collection, you can even enter GPS coordinates of a certain interview or survey. Now, the first thing to make sure that you have, before doing that, you need to make sure to go into your phone settings and make sure that your location, that you have actually allowed your phone to capture your location. So you have to put it on to say to your phone, yes, you can follow me everywhere where I go. So basically, this is what you're doing. So you need to go into the phone settings, click on location, and make sure it's on and it's not on off. Because if it's on off, when you attempt to collect this data, it will not work because you haven't allowed your phone to do that. And once this is on, then you can go into your survey, into your FACET survey at the question of GPS reading. Then you'll have the Start GeoPoint button. You click on it, and as soon as you do this, it will start searching for your location. And as soon as it found it and it has a good accuracy, here you can have 1 meter. It will input this information here. If you're not happy for it for a reason or another, you can always click on change location and it will collect it again. So basically, this is how it works for the GPS coordinates. Now, there's another option that you will find in the FACET survey is to take an image, to input an image in your database. So you can either take a picture, or maybe you already took that picture on your phone and you can input the image from your phone. So you have both options. And this is how it looks like, basically. You have those 2 buttons. You either take a picture and you will open up your camera, your phone camera, to take the picture on the spot, or you click on choose image, and then it will bring you to your directory in your phone, and you'll have to direct it to where your image is, and then click on it for it to be imported into the survey. And this will be in the database as well on Kobo Toolbox. Now, as we were saying before, this form is available in 2 languages, in English and in French. And you can, during the survey, once you are in the questionnaire on the phone, you can switch your language anytime when you want. So in order to do this, you have to be in your questionnaire. So here I'm in the WINS survey, for instance. And once I'm in there, I also have those 3 dots here. So this is the settings of my survey, basically. And if I have several languages, if you just have 1 language, you will not find this change language. But if I have at least 2 different languages that are available for my questionnaire, I'll have this change language button here. And as soon as I click on it, I'll have all the languages that are available, basically, for my phone. And I can choose one or the other. And as soon as I click on it, my whole questionnaire will switch to that language that I've selected. So here it's in English. We will keep it in English. But I could switch to French anytime I want, and then back to English, and then back to French. The data, whether you collect it in French or English, it will look the same. It doesn't make a difference. It's just for you, when you collect the data, the language you will collect it in. But the database itself will have the same, will be exactly the same whether it's in French or English. Now, once you have collected your data entry, you have entered all the information and so on. I don't know, for a reason or the other, you might need to go back to it to edit it, or just to check it, to enter it and see question by question how it looks like, and maybe edit it here and there. You can always do that to the data up until the point where it will be sent to the server. So as far as it's still on your phone, you can edit it, you can delete it, you can do whatever you want with it anytime. And you can do so by going back to the main menu, clicking on Edit Saved Form, and you'll have a list of all the data entries that are still on your phone, and you can enter any one of them. You can do one at a time, not several of them together, but one at a time. So you click on edit save form, enter the data, and then look at it and save it, and then go to the other, and so on and so on. Now, once you have entered your data entry, edited, do whatever you need to do with it, and now it's ready. For you, it's ready, it's correct, it's everything is good, and you want to send it to the database, to the server. There are two different things you need to make sure are there before well, one thing actually, before you'll be able to send it. You need to first finalize your form. You will not be able to send a data entry that is not considered as finalized on ODK Collect to the server. It will just stay there. You'll not, once you click on this button, send it, it will not be there. So where do you finalize this form and how do you do it? It's at the very end of each data entry. You have this last screen before you save your form and exit, and you have this mark form as finalized that you should tick so that your form, your data is considered as finalized. So tick here and then click on Save Form and Exit. It will bring you back to the main menu. And for this form that is considered as finalized here, if you click on Send Finalized Form, now be very careful when you click on Fill Blank Form, Edit Saved Form, and all of that. Remember, you don't need an internet connection. But when you'll attempt to send the data, you will again communicate with the server. So you will need to have a Wi-Fi or an internet connection. So you make sure you have the Wi-Fi internet connection, and then you click on Save Finalized Form, and then you'll see this data entry here, in, among others maybe, that you'll be able to tick and say, okay, I will send this one and this one and this one. And then once it's sent to the server, it's gone. You cannot, it's not going to be on your phone anymore. You can still clean it, touch it, modify it, even delete it if you want, but directly from your server, not from your ODK Collect application anymore. Okay. Now, some other additional settings you might need in your ODK Collect application. So we have looked into how to navigate through the form and how to connect to the server, but there are some others that you can explore maybe after the session. One, so whenever you click here on those three dots, you have general settings and admin settings. So the general settings, you could have settings on the user interface, for instance, the language of your ODK Collect application. If for any reason you want to switch it to another language or to French or whatever, you can do it from the general settings user interface. You can, you have some settings related to the form management, like, and this is related to the form, like, I don't know, do I want my data to be sent automatically or not, and so on and so on. Okay, very good question. If mistakenly filled forms are deleted, is there any facility backup to delete data, backup the deleted data in mobile app? Unfortunately not. So this is something you need to be very, 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 very careful with. If you delete your questionnaire from your phone, it's fine, because you can, you will not delete it from the server. So you can always connect to the server and get it back. However, if you delete the data that has not been sent to the server yet from your phone, it's gone. It's unfortunately gone. So you have to redo that data entry again. And this is something you need to be very careful with. Don't delete data that has not been sent to the server. Once it's sent to the server, it's there. It's you have to go to the server and delete it from there. So it's fine. But if it's not sent, unfortunately, you have to redo it again. Okay, now the admin settings are more advanced settings, basically. Like you could tell it, okay, here on this main menu, I don't want this view send form button here. So I'll go to admin settings, main menu settings, and say it, I don't want this button. So you could do that basically. Okay, now, very important, as you saw, we have a date type of question in our survey. So, and this date actually has a certain constraint on it. We don't want to have like a date in 10 years or 20 years in the past. So there is a constraint there, and this will be based on the date and time on your phone. So it doesn't have intelligence to know exactly what date and time is in the world right now. So it will take information from the phone. So for this question, so that you don't have any issues with this question when you fill in your questionnaire, please make sure that the date and time on your phone are correct and are okay. And in order to do so, you can go to the settings on the phone directly, date and time, and then it could be done automatically. So if that's the case and it's false, then you should take the automatic mode off and put it yourself, the date and the time. Now, the time, you don't have to be precise to the second. It could be 2 minutes earlier or later, that's fine. But really the most important thing is that you're precise in the dates and as much as possible in the time, but don't get a headache with that. Okay, that's one thing. And then the other thing, as we were saying before, one of the disadvantages of mobile data collection is that you're dependent on electricity. So if you're going to do your data collection in a very remote place where you don't have any sources of energy, if you have very good smartphones, it might last for data collection for 2 or 3 days without having to charge it, but at some point you need to charge it still. So there are several suggestions here that we have put for you in order to help you, first of all, save as much battery as possible, and then once you don't have any more battery, how to charge it, or how to be able to still use them even though you don't have a possibility to charge them in a place. So the first thing is, as I was saying, you can completely go offline during the data collection. So you could put on plane mode your phone. That's fine, you can do it. And the advantage of this is that it also saves energy. It will not run a lot of applications behind you. Just have that ODK Collect on. Now, if you don't put it on plane mode, you could also turn the Wi-Fi off. You could lower the luminosity of the display. Maybe you don't need that much luminosity, so you can use a bit less in order to save the battery. You can set the display turn off. You can charge up the battery daily if possible. Turn off the GPS when not in use. So you will only collect the GPS coordinates at one specific point in the survey, not during the whole survey. So you could take it off during the whole survey, and then when that question comes in, you put it on, collect the data, put it off again, and then continue for the next data collection. You can do that because the GPS will run in the back as well. It will attempt to follow you everywhere you go, and that uses battery as well. You could use dark themes on ODK Collect, and if that's not enough, you can use power bars in order to charge, and USB chargers for remote place. So usually you go by car, so you could also charge them through your car and things like that. Now I have a question. Have you gotten some experience for challenges with ODK collection? If so, please share with us. ODK, so with the ODK Collect application, right? Not that many. I've mainly got challenges with, yes, indeed. I've mainly had challenges with Kobo Collect actually, so I don't have that many negative things to say on ODK Collect application, but it can still happen anytime if they, I don't know, sometimes when they do, when they update the application, they might, there might be a bug somewhere that was not there before and it just pops in. And so you might encounter that for a short period of time, but you can always refer to them and tell them, okay, I'm experiencing this bug and could you please do something about it? And usually they correct it and update the application again. So that could be quite short, but you could always have a bug as in any technology. But other than that, not that many. And also be careful when you delete the data that you haven't sent to the server. That can be a really bad experience as well. If you do that for a lot of data entries, you might have to redo those data entries, unfortunately. Okay, now, as we still have, how much do we have? Almost 20 minutes left. Now that I've shown to you all those steps on ODK Collect application, let's take, so maybe some of you have followed me throughout those steps and have already started this process. So if that's the case, feel free to continue doing so. But for those that have not done yet, I invite you all to take your phones, or if you have an emulator on your computer, to take your emulator, to enter the ODK application, to enter the credentials that I provided to you to connect to the server where those two FACET forms are available, and to download those two forms, and then enter one of them, the one that interests you most, or any of them as you wish, and then start exploring it and start entering it, or change the language if needed, or anything that you wish to explore. Take the time to do it now. If you have any challenges or anything you're encountering, please feel free to raise them to us now, or through yes, I have a very good question on GPS coordinates as well, indeed. Yeah, so if you encounter any challenges, I'll come back to that, don't worry, Vishal. If you encounter any technical challenges right now, when you're attempting to do so, please jump in. Please say it through the chat, and we will attempt to solve it so that you manage to have access to the surveys and have a look at them. For any feedback on the form itself, so content-related feedback, this will be you'll receive an online form after this training that you need to fill in with any information that you wish to provide to us, any feedback, and we will discuss this during session 2. So any content related to the FACET WINS or WIH forms, please keep those questions for in between the session 1 and session 2, and we will discuss them during session 2 or individually with you through. So I will open my emulator at the same time. Excuse me, I'm attempting. Okay, I will just close it. Okay, my apologies, it's not responding anymore. And I will open it again along with the presentation. Okay, so I will do this at the same time as you do, so that I can guide you through it. Oh, great. Okay, let's restart the engine. Oh my, this is not a good time, this text. Okay, well, maybe not. Apologies for this, I have an unexpected issue with my BlueStacks. It doesn't want to. Or maybe it will. Okay, I'll try to force it. But in any case, please enter the ODK Collect application and then go to the, no, it will not work. My apologies for this. Okay, so I'll go back to the server settings slides. So please, as soon as you open it, go to General Settings, Server, and then enter the URL that is here, HTTPS, exactly as it is here. Otherwise, it will not work. So I invite you to do this for those that have not done yet. And then as soon as you have done this, please click on Get Blank Form and make sure you have a connection so that you can download the form. Okay, now to answer to the question about the GPS coordinates. So there's a problem as I was facing while taking GPS coordinates. If there is cloudy sky, is there any easier option without using Wi-Fi? Okay, yes, I know that issue indeed. So when you take the GPS coordinates, it doesn't use the Wi-Fi. It's not the Wi-Fi the problem. The problem is the connection with the satellites. So basically, your phone, when you have your location on and you're attempting to collect the GPS coordinates, so you push that button on your ODK Collect application, your phone will start communicating with the satellites above you, all the ones that are above you, to locate you as much as possible and as precisely as possible. So it's not the Wi-Fi, it's actually the connection to the satellites. And this is why you're having issues when it's cloudy sky, because there is an obstacle in between you and the satellites. Now, if this happens, It could be either indeed because of the cloudy skies, because it's very, very heavy in between and the connection into the satellites is really, really difficult. But it could also be because maybe your phone is a bit older and the GPS coordinates, the collection of GPS coordinates is maybe a bit rusty. So in order to avoid that issue, you can recalibrate your GPS. And there is an application actually that can help you. So you will just have to download it on your phone and then just open it. For instance, in the morning before you go and collect the data, you just open it, you put it on your table outside if possible, because if you're inside, you have a roof, it's even worse than cloudy skies, or even trees sometimes can interact. And you just open it and it will actually calibrate. It will communicate with all the satellites that it's finding above your head in order to locate you as much as possible. And so that your GPS will work better during the day afterwards. Another case, and it happens to me quite often as well, is when you travel a long distance by plane, for instance, with your phones, and you're traveling, I don't know, 5,000 kilometers. It can take quite a lot of time for the satellites to find you again once you connect again to them. So you might need to test a bit the connection for the GPS coordinates and all of that, and recalibrate with the application. Now the application, I will put it through the chat. It's called GPS Test Plus. So you can also find it on the Play Store as well. And this is I've just sent it to everybody. So you can just download it and then open it in the morning or even in the evening, as you wish, but before your data collection, and let it calibrate a bit, and then this might get better for you afterwards. Now, I see a lot of questions popping up. Shall I take the time for that, John, or are you replying?
I would propose we go through the homework and then we come back to the questions, just so that we leave adequate time for the homework. I'm noting down the questions and I'll ask them to you after we proceed with the homework, if that's okay.
Yes, the homework for after session 1, you mean?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay. Okay, great. Now, that was all for today. So we wanted to show you the different tools, how to use them, and particularly ODK Collect. Remember that next time we will look at Kobo Toolbox, the server, we will provide you with the XLS form for you to put it there and deploy it, and then see how you can access it, how you can see the data as well, and so on and so on. Now, as those sessions are quite short, we have a bit of practical homework in between, in order to be able to cover as much as possible all the aspects that you need to know for, put it full screen on, for you to be able to deploy a FACET survey and analyze the data. We have sent to you a brief on mobile data collection and analysis prior to session 1. And the section 1, ODK Collect, was a reading for today's session. Now for next session, please read section 2 of this same brief. If you don't have it anymore, don't worry. Please let us know and we will send it to you with pleasure. But yes, it's a quite short brief, and even section 2 might not be more than 1 page, but 1.5 pages, maybe 2 maximum. But this will provide you a quick introduction on what we're going to do for next time, and we'll be well prepared for session 2 next week. Now, another homework, practical homework for prior to session 2. So before next Tuesday will be to pilot either the HCF or the Blue Schools form that were made available to you through today's login. So this is exactly the same as before. And it's best to work through the survey together as a team on one or several phones simultaneously if needed, as you think it's best. Teams can practice completing and sending the forms as many times as they wish. So you can do this as many times as you wish, no worries. Please feel free to send anything that wish. Just keep in mind that you need to send, you cannot send incomplete forms. You'll have to complete the form until the end to send it. So just keep that in mind. And if an access to a school or HCF is not feasible, you can also simulate the survey in or around your office with your colleagues. It's also fun. It's really made to test the survey, for you to get to know it as much as possible. And so if it's not feasible in a school or HCF, that is also fine, don't worry, but still test it with colleagues or even family as you wish. Now, another thing is that an online form link, so that's the Enqueto, that's what we were talking before with Leah, will be sent to you through email for feedback from your team's experience. And this will be mainly on your user experience with the tools themselves, like all the problems you've encountered with ODK Collect, or when you were attempting to connect to a server, or download the survey, or fill in the survey, and so on and so on. And also clarifications on the survey content that you might need, like meanings, language of the questions, observations, and so on. And mainly from this pilot. So this is what you're also doing the pilot. And please fill in this online form link and send it to us prior to session 2, as we will be using this information also for session 2. So all the common feedback. So if you have 10 times the same issue you're encountering with either the survey content or connection in ODK Collect, we will bring that up during that session, and so that everybody can know how to troubleshoot that issue, or how to approach that meaning or language of the question, and so on and so on. And if there's something very specific to either your context or your phone, or something like very local to you, and we haven't encountered that in any other feedback, we would reply to you, but maybe individually, so that as we only have 1 hour and a half for next session, we might not have the time to cover all the individual questions we've had as well. We will take the ones, but we will reply to you through the SWSC FACET hotline. Now, along with the online form link, you will also receive, again via email, the WINS and WHH surveys in PDF for you to review the questions in details. You'll also receive an Excel sheet for you to compile the project-specific information to your context, to your project, so that we can pre-configure a survey form for your actual baseline survey. So the aim of this exercise as well is to prepare your actual baseline survey you'll be using in your context. So at some point we'll have individual FACET surveys for you. And this information will be on the country, the region or province, district or municipality facilitating, whether it's the school or HCF, and also the number of survey teams for the baseline survey. And please review those PDFs and fill in the Excel sheet prior to session 2 and send it to us, so that we can look at the information and start preparing for you those forms. And based on this information, and also what comes out from session 2, we'll prepare your actual survey and share it with you shortly after session 2 for you to be able to conduct the data collection with it. Now, also another thing, and this is also for sessions 2, there will be, so now you have all connected to the same Kobo Toolbox account, where the 2 surveys are, those are like the global surveys, where if you don't find the name of your school or your district and so on, that's normal. That's because it's the global survey that is there, and everybody connects to the same one. So this is really made to pilot, to test the form. Now, for your data collections and further on, you need to have a specific form for yourself. And for that reason, you also have to have a specific Kobo Toolbox login for yourself. We will create those and share them with you before session 2, so that you can use them individually on each one of your sites during session 2 and 3, and also for your data collection. So we will do that when we send to you individually through email prior to session 2. Also, the presentations, today's presentation and further presentations will be shared with you after each session. And also during this practical homework of 1 week, until Tuesday of next week, please keep in mind that support is available for you either through CME follow-up or through the hotline support, which is ourselves, CartONG behind it. You just need to send an email request to this email address, FACET. So this is not underscore, this is, I don't know what to call this, but it's, yeah, FACET. Yes, that's it. SWSC support at CartONG.org. And we can even organize Skype calls if needed to discuss any particular issues you're encountering or provide the support. But feel free to send an email here, and then we will reply to you as soon as possible, and also by Skype calls when needed. And I believe this is all on my side. So, John, what time is it?
Sure, there were just a couple questions.
Yes.
Yeah, there was one question. We can fill the forms in offline mode, right?
Yes, yes. Your questionnaire will be on your phone, and you can do it completely in offline mode. You need an internet connection again when you send the data. So you can do it in block. You can collect your data as much as you need, no worries, and then just have the internet connection at that time when you send it all together. But other than that, it's fine, offline, completely, no worries.
Great, and the last question from Sopip was if we are going to conduct the ODK collection for 45 schools, so he's talking about his eventual baseline survey, can we save the data separated by school individually? So each school individually, data is saved. If we want to use the data analysis for 45 schools, are they available for synchronizing those data analysis? Here, I think the question is, the data will be saved for individual schools. You will only fill out one school per form, per blank form, and then you will send that data to the server. Is that right, Claudia?
Yes, exactly, yes. So it's per school. So if you wish to, so basically it's going to be one line of data per school, and you'll have 45 data entries, if my understanding is correct of the question. So, so you can put them together, you can analyze them all together, but you could of course also do it individually for the 45 as it is available in the database individually.
Great, thank you. There were a couple questions earlier about additional questions, so customizing the survey form for a specific project or translations. So if you are working on a Swiss Water and Sanitation Phase 3 project and you need to contextualize your survey, meaning adding questions or doing it in a different language, we may be able to support you. If you have questions, like additional questions, you can please send them to me. I'll put my email in the chat, and we can see on a case-by-case basis, usually depending on the number of questions and the complexity that you need. For translations, we will provide you the survey form, and you can make the translations with your own team. These would be translations of the questions, the responses, the hints, and whatever other material is appearing on the screen. And then we will see with CartONG about how to make those modifications. So for this, if it's a complex modification to make on adding questions or even translating into a different language, we may not have the resources with the current agreement that we have with CartONG to do that. So we may need to take some resources from your project budget, but let's look at that on a case-by-case basis. So I'm just going to drop my email in the chat in case you don't have it already, and we can look at that. And with that, we've come to the end of our first training session. If there are any burning questions, I think Claudia and myself could stay online for another few minutes to address those. But we do want to respect the time, and please also make use of the hotline email address, which we'll be sharing with you as you go through your pilot survey. Good luck with the homework, and enjoy. And Lucy has very adequately, thank you, Lucy. Please do copy your regional advisor when you are emailing to me. Yes, Satya, we're coming to you.
Yeah, so I had a question in the chat box. Would you kindly reply?
Yes, can you please remind us?
Yes, so see, we have completed the baseline data survey already for our HCF. So now that we have done through the Kobo Collect and the existing questionnaire. So now we have to do the baseline survey again, or we have to.
Sure, I understand the question. It's a very good question. For those projects that have already done their baseline survey in FACET, you do not need to do the baseline survey again. However, we have added a few questions for both healthcare facilities, because I know you have a healthcare facilities project, Satya, that are outcome level indicators that you would need to take a look at and see how to answer. So for those cases, and I guess this involves the 3 terrorism projects in Asia, let's look at that together with Ramesh. We'll send you a specific list of questions that we need the answers to, and you can just do an answer on those questions individually. And even if you know the information, then you might not even need to do the whole survey. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sure. I see some notes of thanks. Thank you all. Okay, people signing off. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, a quick one.
Yes,
Hello.
please.
Alex here. Thanks for the rich presentation, but I seem to pick from your submission, or from her submission, that every school, and I'm picking from the other question of the person who inquired about the 45 schools. That you seem to suggest that we are going to only administer a single tool, which is a record for a school per school. Is that the case, or we are supposed to administer a number of tools, a number of records per school?
Yes, thanks, Alex. So for each school, you will fill out a separate survey form.
You could clarify on that, because I assume the gentleman who asked about 45 schools, he could have had the same thinking like me, that we may be required to administer the same tool, but to various individuals in the school, or governance structures in the school, or we only have to administer a single record per school.
Yes, that's right. It's a single record per school. During the pilot, what you'll be testing this week, you may want to have several team members with several smartphones going through and doing the survey together. But when you do your actual survey, it will be one smartphone, one school, one survey form. Claudia, is there anything else you'd like to add to that answer?
Oh, my apologies, I was muted. No, I believe it was clear.
So in the end, you would have, if it's
Claudia,
45 schools, you would have 45 different survey forms that you would have recorded and sent. Now, that might happen on different smartphones. If it's 45
Yes.
schools, you might have 3 different teams or 4 different teams, each team working with one smartphone and taking a certain number of schools. And then when you send the information in that smartphone after you complete the survey and submit it, it all goes to the same Kobo account, and it's all collated or gathered together into one database.
Exactly, yes. So you could collect one data per phone, that's fine. It just has to be connected to the correct server, and all the data will be going to that same server, to that same database, and that's fine.
hi Claudia and John.
Sure, you're welcome.
I have downloaded the ODK Collect now, and also the form. I can see now there are 2 forms. One is the FACET Wind Survey version 2.1 and FACET WIH Training version 2.1. When I click on version 2.1, the healthcare facility survey, I see 2 options. One is the preliminary questions and general information. So, but when I click again on the preliminary questions, it gives me a list of the 8 questions. So is this only for the training program for our homework, or this is the questionnaire that we should follow for the baseline survey?
This is the actual baseline survey form that you're going to be using. Or it's also the same for your outcome level data collection when you do your annual reporting on outcome indicators. It's the same form. So there may have been some slight changes or updates to the version that you were using previously, but we can look at those. I think it's important to remember that you can make a selection which type of survey you would like to do. Either core questions, which is the outcome indicators only, or a core plus expanded questions, which is the total baseline survey or total end-line survey. So as you're practicing this, and for those who are still on the call and will be practicing, we recommend that you choose the core plus expanded for the baseline survey to practice on.
But I see only when I click on the WIH training FACET questionnaire, I see only two options, preliminary questions and general information. I don't see the core questions or other. Is this the right one that I've selected?
Yes, it should be. You should see, after you go through and complete the preliminary information and the general questions, then you should come to a point where it asks you which type of survey you want to do. After you get to that point, then you continue with the rest of the survey.
Wonderful. Okay.
Okay.
John, this is Amit.
Sorry.
Hello.
Yes. Alex.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to just a clarification. I went through the questionnaire and I found that the province and states and schools that are not specific. So province, country and other things are still in general. So when we are testing during this homework, do we need to randomly put any number or anything?
Thanks for that question, Amrit. It's very good. Yes, you can put any number or any information that you would like to facilitate that you can keep going through the survey. But that's part of the information that we're requesting from you. We will send out a form for you to complete, listing out the names of the schools or the healthcare facilities, what municipality or district they're in, what state and country they're in, as well as a few other details so that we can customize that survey to your specific project.
Thank you for the clarity. But so far we will be doing randomly as it is there.
Random is fine for the pilot. Yes.
Okay, thank you, John.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. Claudia, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I'm having a question on the URL itself, and I just wanted to clarify this because it's indeed the way it's showed here. I don't know if you still see the screen. The URL itself has underscores here in between SWSC FACET and training. It is not a space, and indeed the way it's shown here, you cannot see it, but this is an underscore. So indeed, if you attempt to put a space in your phone, it will not be accepted. You will not be able to put a space. And even if you put them all together, you will not be able to find the server. So this is a point here. This is a point, but those are underscores that you can input here in the URL. I just wanted to emphasize that, as maybe it's not clear. If you'll be able to see it here in the on the screenshot itself. It is an underscore. I just wanted to emphasize that because I had a question about it.
Thank you, Claudia. Thanks for underscoring that point.
Yes. And if
Alex, again, this is an inquiry on whether the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation for today will be shared with us as a reference document as and when, in case one encounters a challenge.
Sure, we'll be sharing with you the materials within the next 24 hours, Alex.
Yes.
If we're able to do it this evening, we will, but likely it'll be tomorrow, first half of the day.
Yes, indeed.
John, maybe one question from my side. This is Lucy speaking.
Sure.
Thank you very much. It was really clear presentation. I'm just going through one of the survey, and I noticed there are quite some levels of general information or the question, then the core and the non-core, and then you click And I mean, for us, maybe it's clear because we worked on the questions and we know those different levels and we know what's the difference between the core and expanded. I was wondering, for those who are maybe less familiar with using mobile phone data collections, if shall we try to, shall we offer the option to fill one form one by one all together, just to that everyone understand how to go back? I mean, now we went through it, but it went a bit quick and there are quite some different levels. Or shall we clarify maybe the structure, because this is all based on the M&E frameworks, but I don't know if this is really clear for everyone. Or is this planned for the next session, John?
Yeah, so the next session is really to go into the form in detail.
Okay.
Right now, it's just for people to get a tour, to get familiar with using the tools. When we do share the information, we would suggest that people do their pilot using the core plus expanded. But yeah, we'll be unpacking that much more next week.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much for that observation. Okay, I think we'll wrap up with a warm thanks, a hearty thanks to Claudia for the presentation today, as well as to Jacques for hosting, and for all of you for your participation, your active participation and questions. And we look forward to being in touch with you this week and to our next session on the 22nd next week. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon wherever you are. Namaste.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
See you next week. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.